Good morning. Every single day presents multiple reasons that remind me of how complete and powerful a system of beliefs for living our best life and becoming the best version of ourselves exists with unity. As a belief, mind creates, gives power to actively take charge of life, to purposefully make it what we want. Accepting and living that premise implies believing that each of us has free will, and therefore we individually play a huge role in creating the world we experience. That also means we take responsibility for what happens at both ends of the spectrum. Much of life is an individual creation, and much of it is a co-creation with others in our world. But all of it is powered by one source, the creator of all that is. And one of the great sages of our time, Snoopy, says this: can everybody read it? Forgiveness is an integral part of the whole ecosystem of life. From a personal perspective, forgiveness is easy when the perceived wrong does not matter much. But when it brings betrayal, it's much harder to truly forgive. There are zillions of quotes about forgiveness, but they all translate to forgiveness creates forgiveness for oneself. So, if only for selfish reasons, forgiveness may be one of the most important mindsets to practice to keep the kinks out of the armor. In other words, again, what you focus on is what you get. So, if you practice thinking about what horrible thing happened that you just can't forget, you're only inviting more of that into your world. On the other hand, if you practice compassion and forgiveness for everyone and everything, you're inviting happiness and joy into your world. Forgiveness doesn't mean saying what you did was okay. It means saying what you did is no longer allowed to live rent-free in my heart. Even in the early 1700s, Alexander Pope, a great poet, said, "To err is human, forgive divine." Everyone says that forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive. C.S. Lewis. Sherry Carter Scott said, "Anger makes you smaller, while forgiveness forces you to grow beyond what you were." Forgiveness of others is the ultimate self-care protocol. It frees the space those old memories have been occupying in your mind and heart at a cost far greater than you realized. Here's the bigger and better benefit. True forgiveness allows us, actually propels us to higher vibratory levels, which is where the nuggets of sublime happiness and joy are. That level includes well-being. Forgiveness is one of the highest expressions of spiritual maturity. It's not the denial of pain, nor the approval of injustice. Rather, it is the conscious decision to release the burden of resentment so that the soul may return to its natural state of peace. Unity teaches that each person carries within him the divine presence, the Christ consciousness, what I like to call the God molecule, which forever remains whole, unbroken, and connected to God. When we forgive, we're not changing the past. We're changing our relationship to it. We shift from fear to love, from separation to unity, and from limitation to the awareness of our divine inheritance, peace, joy, and unconditional love. The unforgiven is a relentless taskmaster, attacking when you're most vulnerable, magnifying the negative of whatever negative is currently grabbing your attention, and building the foundation for illness, despair, depression, and generally a terrible, horrible, awful, no good, fun existence for as long as it's allowed to dominate your thoughts and reactions. As part of the energetic healing protocol, Dr. Cam Yuen, my mentor for Chinese energetics, included forgive and forget unconditionally in his healing sessions, regardless of the issue. Of the myriad of choices to improve your life, forgiveness is the glue that weaves everything else together and makes it work for your benefit. Lack of forgiveness is a core issue that prevents complete harmony and happiness and ensures continuing illness. The tract A Sure Remedy, included in the Household of Faith book from truthyunity.net in the July 1902 issue, contains this passage. Here is a mental treatment that's guaranteed to cure every ill that flesh is heir to. Sit for a half an hour every night and mentally forgive everyone against whom you have any ill will or antipathy. Across traditions, the greatest spiritual leaders and thinkers speak of forgiveness as liberation, not as weakness, not as approval of harm, but as a powerful inner freedom. Here's how some of them frame it. Jesus repeatedly revealed forgiveness as a spiritual law rather than merely a moral obligation. He taught, forgive, and you will be forgiven. Luke 6:37. When Peter asked how often he should forgive, Jesus answered, not 7 times, but 77 times. Matthew 18:22. Even from the cross, amid profound suffering, Jesus demonstrated the ultimate freedom of forgiveness. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. Apostle Paul echoed this invitation. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. Gautama Buddha taught, that holding anger harms you more than the offender. He said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness is seen as releasing attachment to resentment. It restores inner peace and ends karmic cycles of suffering. Mahatma Gandhi proposed that forgiveness requires strength. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. The Dalai Lama's core belief was mercy elevates the soul. Forgiveness does not mean accepting injustice. You can forgive while still opposing harmful actions. Compassion protects your own mental peace. He emphasizes that forgiveness is for your inner stability, not permission for abuse. Nelson Mandela modeled that resentment imprisons you. After 27 years in prison, he chose reconciliation over revenge. Forgiveness became a national healing strategy. So here are some common themes across traditions. Despite cultural differences, the teachings converge. 1, forgiveness frees the forgiver. It dissolves inner suffering more than it benefits the offender. 2, forgiveness is strength, not weakness. It requires emotional mastery and moral courage. 3, forgiveness does not erase accountability. You can forgive and still uphold justice and boundaries. 4, forgiveness restores spiritual alignment. It clears resentment that blocks compassion, intuition, and peace. Forgiveness is often described as a frequency shift from contraction to expansion. Here's the neuroscience of forgiveness. When we hold resentment, the amygdala, the threat detection center, stays activated. Stress hormones like cortisol remain elevated. The body stays in subtle fight or flight. When we forgive, the prefrontal cortex, reasoning and regulation center, becomes more active. The nervous system shifts toward parasympathetic calm. Heart rate and blood pressure decrease. Emotional regulation improves. In short, forgiveness literally rewires the stress circuitry of the brain. Research in positive psychology, works by Robert Enright and Everett Worthington, show forgiveness reduces anxiety, depression, and even chronic pain symptoms. From a neurological perspective, forgiveness restores coherence between the emotional brain and higher awareness, which many people experience as clearer perception. Here's a guided forgiveness practice that works both on the nervous system and energetic level. Choose an action that bothers you. Place one hand over your heart and one hand over your abdominal area. Slowly inhale to 4 counts. Exhale to 6 counts. And again. This activates vagal tone and shifts you out of survival mode. Say internally, I release the behavior. I return this soul to his own path. I reclaim my energy fully. See it gently dissolving in the light, just transmuted. Then imagine your field filling with gold white light. Ask yourself, what strength did this situation grow in me? What wisdom did I gain? This activates the prefrontal cortex and rewrites the memory network. So now just take another deep breath. You can return your hands to your lap and take a second to notice any differences that you might feel. Forgiveness is not about anyone else. It's about restoring your internal coherence with infinite source energy. Here are some signs that you've truly forgiven. The memory no longer triggers a body contraction. You stop mentally rehearsing the story. You don't need others to validate that you were wronged. You feel neutral clarity rather than emotional charge. You wish them growth, not punishment. Forgiveness feels less like emotion and more like spaciousness. Here's a deep self-forgiveness practice. It's energy and neuroscience aligned. Visualize yourself at the time of a mistake. Say, you were operating with the awareness you had then. I honor your learning. I release you from punishment. This rewrites the emotional memory network. And to remove the identity hook, say internally, that was an experience. It is not my identity. For somatic release, place both hands over your solar plexus area right above the navel. Breathe slowly and imagine a golden, warm light just filling that area. If emotion rises, it's release, not regression. And then, for a field scan, just close your eyes and ask, where in my body is there unfinished forgiveness? Just notice the sensation, tightness, heat, heaviness. Just observe. And imagine a column of light from above your head, down your spine, aligning you with Source. And say, infinite Source energy, restore coherence to my field. And for energetic cord release, just say, I release resentment. I retain wisdom. I expand in clarity. There are times when we have the belief that we'll forgive someone as soon as that person apologizes. Well, newsflash, most people who wound us don't believe they were wrong. They justify their behavior, or they just lack the emotional maturity to do repair work. So waiting for an apology keeps your nervous system in suspended activation. Forgiveness in this case becomes an internal decision, not a relational event. Forgiveness without apology is about reclaiming your sovereignty. Instead of saying, they owe me an apology, shift to, I owe myself peace. That shift restores power. Forgiveness is an energetic release, not a relational restoration. It transforms victimhood into agency. Spiritual maturity does not mean accepting abuse, avoiding accountability, calling everything karma to avoid anger. It means you extract the lesson, you close the energetic loop, and you move forward without residue. Forgiveness clears emotional interference. It increases nervous system safety, restores internal coherence, and it expands your perceptual bandwidth. All of that improves the manifestation precision, intuitive accuracy, and emotional resilience. Forgiveness is energetic decluttering. Unity interprets these teachings as practical spiritual principles. Every thought of forgiveness dissolves the mental and emotional barriers that prevent us from experiencing the ever-present love, wisdom, and life of God. As Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, taught, our thoughts become the channels through which divine life expresses itself. Forgiveness clears those channels. Forgiveness also reflects a profound spiritual truth. Our deepest identity is greater than our wounds. Beneath every story of hurt is the unchanging divine image in which we were created. As we remember the truth in ourselves, we begin to recognize it in others. To forgive is to declare that love is stronger than resentment. Peace is more powerful than revenge, and that the future need not be imprisoned by the past. Forgiveness restores our awareness that we live, move, and have our being in God, where nothing real can ultimately be separated from divine love. May we therefore choose forgiveness, not because others have earned it, but because our own hearts deserve the freedom it brings. As we release the past into God's infinite love, we discover that forgiveness is not something we give away. It is a gift we awaken within ourselves, allowing divine peace to flow freely through every thought, every relationship, every moment of our lives. May every unresolved wound connected with unforgiveness be brought into the light of divine love. May each person release what they're ready to release, reclaim their own peace and wholeness, and experience freedom without requiring anyone else to change. May forgiveness arise naturally, gently, in perfect timing and divine order.